Have you ever felt like no matter what you do, your pain just won't let up? Or the more things you try, the less effective they seem to be? I remember when I was sick, I thought that I was doing everything right, and yet nothing was getting better. But looking back now, I can see that some of the things that I was doing were actually making my pain and my sickness worse. And it's only in hindsight now that I can see that clearly. But now that I'm working with other people who have chronic pain and chronic illness, I am seeing those same familiar patterns. I think most people with chronic pain or chronic illness are probably doing these things without really realizing it. So today I want to share with you 10 habits that might be secretly fueling your pain and what you can do instead. Hi, I'm Ellen. I'm a chronic pain counselor with a background in physical therapy, and I work with people with chronic pain and chronic illness to help them understand what's going on, help them manage their symptoms, and break down the patterns that are fueling the pain or the illness, to either find relief or sometimes resolve the problem altogether, which is exactly what I did for myself. I used to have full body chronic eczema, and I resolved it through working with my mind and working with my nervous system. If you've been here before, you know the drill. Like, subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next one. If you're new here, welcome. Stick around, see if this feels useful before you commit to clicking any buttons. So, habit number 1, trying everything that you see online. I am all for experimentation. I'm all for trying things out and trying new approaches. But I know for myself, I was so desperate that I was trying absolutely everything that I saw. Every pill, every cleanse, every diet, everything that I could. And I spent so much money. So much wasted time and energy and expense that I really didn't need to. And I think had I just taken a step back and been a little more selective with what I tried and looked into the intentions of the people I was buying from. That's really important because particularly in the alternative medicine space, there are some very good salesmen. I swear, there are people who could sell ice to an Inuit because they are so good at selling a product. And when you're sick and vulnerable, you are a prime target. And I don't mean that to sound scary, and I don't think people are intentionally trying to take advantage, but you do need to have your wits about you and just take a second to think, is this actually going to be helpful? Is this something worth trying? Is it worth the expense and the energy and the time? Or is this just a really good sales pitch? Number 2, trying to control everything. Oh boy, this one was me. I used to be very obsessive about my routines. I would try and control every aspect of my day. I remember I had a morning routine that was refined down to 5-minute increments because I thought if I can just do everything perfectly, then I can control this illness. That didn't work at all. In fact, it made me worse. It made me more stressed out because I would fall into this cycle of trying really hard in these very strict and rigid and often exhausting routines, and then inevitably would fall out of the routine, and then I would feel really bad, like I had failed at healing or something. There was this very poor logic. There was some logic to it, but it was a very destructive logic that was keeping me stuck in this cycle. So what I would recommend is, yes, sometimes a routine can be so comforting and so helpful, but hold it loosely. Particularly when you have chronic pain and chronic illness, your ability to maintain that routine will fluctuate as as you have flare-ups and cool downs. I don't know, what is it, a cool down, a flare down, a come down? As you sort of cycle up and down. So hold those routines loosely, softly, and allow them to be something that is actually helpful, something that supports you rather than pins you down and tries to sort of smother you in structure. Number 3, obsessing over healing and your health. Now, I totally understand that when you are sick, when you're in pain, it is all encompassing. It is every second of your day. It is taking up most of your mental space, and it can be very easy to fall into these obsessive patterns of monitoring and tracking and thinking about it all of the time. I used to be obsessive with my skin. I would take photos of it, I would video it, I would document it, I tracked all of my symptoms. I was obsessive. And it was very detrimental to my mental health. More than anything, it just made my world so small and took away a lot of mental energy for thinking about literally anything else. I was constantly distracted by needing to monitor everything all of the time. So what you can do instead is, you don't need to stop all of that, but you can set some gentle but firm boundaries around when you're allowed to really dive into that tracking and monitoring. You can set aside a certain period of time of the day, or set aside a certain amount of time that you're allowed to take your photos, track your symptoms, do the things that make you feel like you have that control and that sense of security around, like, all right, at least I know what's going on. Don't take that away from yourself. That can be a source of comfort, but when it takes over your entire life, that's when it becomes destructive, which leads very nicely into habit number 4, catastrophizing and over-Googling. So this one is tricky because you've probably had reasons to catastrophize and you've had evidence that things can go wrong. I think I had periods of time where I under-catastrophized and I didn't address things soon enough, which led me to then over-catastrophize later because I never wanted to be put in that situation ever again. I didn't want any more trips to the hospital, so I would try and get out ahead of it. But the thing is that just like the monitoring and the tracking, it can be a source of comfort and security, but it can also take over your entire life. So if you find yourself starting to spiral, doing that 2 a.m. Googling session or obsessing over a certain symptom, practice as early as you can, catching it as early as you can. Practice coming back to the present moment and asking yourself, is there any practical action that I need to take right now? And most of the time, 99% of the time, there probably isn't. It's a difficult balance, but if there is no action that you need to take or you can take right now, the best thing you can do for your nervous system and your mental health and your body is to put the phone down. The Googling and the catastrophizing is often a way to try and protect ourselves. It's our nervous system's way of trying to get out ahead of a problem or trying to protect us from a future problem. But the problem is, it's kind of just causing a problem in the present moment. It's causing us pain right now. So like I said, unless there is a practical action that you need to take right now, put the phone down and become very present with what you're feeling, both emotionally and physically right now. And do everything you can to soothe yourself in that moment. Break that pattern of trying to figure it out, trying to control, trying to get out ahead of it, because you can't. Unfortunately, that is such a heartbreaking reality, is that you won't be able to control everything. You won't be able to catastrophize your way into health. Try to set those same boundaries around time. I'm allowed to Google, I'm allowed to research at this time. And outside of that time, I have to put the phone down. Habit number 5 is the boom bust cycle. So doing too much on the days that you feel good and then completely crashing the next day. So this is when you're coming out of a flare up and you're feeling good and you're like, great, let's go. You push and push and push. I definitely did this. It was almost a punishment in a way for me. It was like, well, you didn't do anything while you were flared up, so now we're going to do everything. And then I would end up being exhausted, and it would often trigger another flare up because I would just push way too hard. So for this, just aim for steadiness. Pace yourself. Try to aim for 80% of your capacity. Do just a little bit less. Resting before you need it is often far more restorative than absolutely crashing when you're overextended. Number 6, negative self-talk and self-blame for being sick. I think I made being sick a bit of a value judgment. I thought that my illness was evidence that I was doing something wrong, or that I wasn't trying hard enough, or that I wasn't disciplined enough. So the symptoms became the trigger for me to be critical of myself. And to generally have this continuous script, like a monologue in the back of my head, just, you're not trying hard enough, you're not doing enough, you're not good enough, why can't you do it? Why can't you be well? Why can't you just snap out of this? If you could just do the right routines, if you could just find the right solution, then you wouldn't be this. You wouldn't be like this. So that's one side of it. But then you've also just got the regular negative self-talk of like, my body is broken. I can't do anything. My body hates me. My immune system is shot. Why can't I be like everyone else? Why are there other people that are healthy? How can people have such bad habits and still be healthy? I used to compare myself to other people constantly. And I became quite resentful of other people who were healthy. And that spiraled. And that just made my internal world so dark and so negative that it again fed into my nervous system just being in constant fight and flight, just constantly feeling like it needs to tighten and protect me. I made my symptoms worse by allowing my thoughts to just run rampant. Now, you can't change your thoughts overnight. There is no way to just flip a switch and suddenly become a happy-go-lucky positive person. That's not going to happen. But you can practice catching yourself when you notice these thoughts, these very negative patterns of thoughts going through your head. You can catch yourself and ask, would I say that to someone else? Would I say that to my friend, my husband, my wife, my daughter, my child? Would I say that to someone else who was in my position? And if you wouldn't say it to someone else, then you don't need to say it to yourself. That thought may have quite a bit of momentum behind it. It may repeat itself. But what you can do is see that thought and see that it is false. You're not going to be able to stop it straight away, but you can take the wind out of its sails. You can allow the momentum to peter out by not buying into it, by not believing it. Habit number 7. Habit number 7, saying yes when you really want to say no. People pleasing, wanting to avoid conflict, not wanting to disappoint anyone, wanting to keep up expectations. This will inevitably lead to resentment and overload. And the only person paying the price is you. Your nervous system, your body, your health. You're the one who's going to have to deal with a flare-up when you've pushed yourself way too far. Now, I know many of us are people pleasers to our core, and the idea of saying no can be terrifying, and we are just not used to it. So I would encourage you to practice with the smaller, easier things when you can. Just say no to one little thing per week and practice the skill. Allow yourself to feel that nervousness, that shakiness of saying no. Saying no can be a very vulnerable thing. Practice holding those emotions that come up, those scary emotions that we're trying to avoid by saying yes to everything. Hold them, be with them, sit with them, allow them to come up with the smaller things first. And then you can expand your capacity to say no to bigger and bigger things. And then when you want to say yes, when you really want to do something, you'll have the energy to do it, because you've said no to the things that you didn't want to do. Number 8, the appeal to nature fallacy. Now, this one isn't so much of a habit as it is maybe a belief system, but then again, beliefs are thoughts that you just keep thinking. So I guess it's kind of a habit. So this one is more about like rigid thinking and creating blind spots. So thinking that because it's natural, it can't be harmful, or because it's medical, it's always bad. Refusing to take medication out of fear or shame, which is definitely what I went through, and being too extreme about trying every single natural method there is out there. Because when these natural options are taken to an extreme, they can also have negative side effects, but they are often less monitored, less supervised, and you have less protections when you're in this very unregulated space. So the solution to this way of thinking is just seeing every option as a tool and weighing up what is truly best for you in this moment. It's much like the routines is holding things lightly. Number 9, forgetting about joy and play. When you're sick, when you're dealing with pain, when you're trying to solve this problem and it's taking over your whole life, it can be really easy to forget that you're a human who needs joy, who needs laughter, who needs peace, who needs relaxation and life outside of your illness. So if you've already set those time boundaries around like monitoring and Googling and thinking about your symptoms and how to fix them, you can then spend the rest of your time engaging in your life and actively looking for ways that you can inject just a little bit of lightness and joy into your life. And at first that can be quite scary because your nervous system may not be used to relaxing enough to actually allow you to feel joy and allow you to have fun. So you do kind of have to put the cart before the horse. No, you do. So you may need to put just a little bit of effort to sparking some joy, to consciously engaging in an activity that encourages that side of your nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system that helps you release stress. You might need to find something that kickstarts that process for you and consciously engage in it, even if it feels a little weird or unsafe or unproductive, like it's a poor use of your time because you should be focusing on healing, or focusing on something more practical. Consciously engage with things that actually bring you joy. And finally, number 10, treating your body like a machine. And this habit, this way of thinking, this mental pattern can lead to all of the other habits. If I just do everything right, if I just throw enough mud at the wall, if I just control myself enough, then this should work. You can't think about fixing your body like fixing a car. You can't just think like, oh, if I just put better quality oil in it, if I just tighten this bolt or fix the carburetor. I don't know anything about cars, but your body is not a machine. And this way of thinking leads to frustration, leads to the negative self-talk, leads to these very destructive beliefs and mental patterns that reinforce, like, if I just try harder, if I just push the right buttons, then I'll be fixed. Cars are predictable. Cars are more mathematical. Human bodies aren't. And this way of thinking completely forgets about the human being that is inside of this body, the soul that inhabits this sick body. The soul needs as much care, if not more, than the package, than the so-called machine. When I realized that my healing journey was far more about remembering my humanity and paying attention to how I felt, rather than trying to fix myself, I actually started healing. That was what put me on the right path. It really messes with your sense of identity and self-worth when you compare yourself to a machine, when you think that you should function like a machine. Because a broken machine is something that we discard. If a machine isn't working the way that it should, it gets thrown out. That's something that I put on myself, was I felt like I was worth less if I wasn't functioning correctly. Because I was looking at myself as a collection of parts that should do what I want. I wanted to be more productive. I wanted to be able to push harder. I wanted to be able to be better. All for this drive to be good, to be worthy, to be a good little machine that was contributing to society. And that mindset drove me to push myself over the edge, and I ended up breaking, and I had to give it up in order to heal. I think that we're most certainly trained by our society to be productive, to push harder, to do more, to upgrade yourself like a software update, to constantly be leveling up and doing more. And as soon as you start to fall behind, we punish ourselves. We think like, oh, we're not doing enough. And when you're sick, that mindset just, it's just so counterproductive. It slows the healing process down and makes the process so torturous, so unnecessarily painful. So reminding yourself of your own humanity, reminding yourself that you are a human being, not a machine, reminding yourself that your self-worth isn't tied to your productivity. So you may have recognized some of those habits within yourself, and just being aware of them is a huge first step. You don't have to change all of them all at once. In fact, I wouldn't encourage that at all. Gently, slowly, step by step. There's no need to turn this into another project, another source of perfectionism, another source of pressure. The key to this is noticing the relief that you feel when you start to change one of these habits. And that feeling of relief is your nervous system telling you like, oh, thank goodness. Yes, you're on the right track. And over time, these little shifts, these little changes add up to a nervous system that feels safer, to a body that feels supported, to a life that isn't defined by pain alone. I make these videos for my past self. These are things that I really wish that I had heard when I was really sick. And if that's where you're at right now, I really hope something in this video helped you or brought some comfort or just gave you some clarity or insight. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on the next one. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, there are some free resources in the description. That will also connect you with my email list where I share more tools, more insights from my work with chronic pain and chronic illness, and where I give as much love and encouragement as I can. Nothing spammy, just support. So check out the description below, like and subscribe, etc., and I will see you in the next one. Bye.